for joining us for another session of Top Virtual Staffing Solutions Virtual Town Hall. And for today's session, we have an expert regarding travel, specifically business travel, Mr. Jay Ellenby of Safe Harbors Business Travel. Hi there, Jay.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for being here again. Thank you for being our subject matter expert. And we appreciate everybody else joining us today. So, on that note, Mr. Jay, can you go ahead and provide a little bit more of your background first before we dive in of what the present or the future of travel is as things constantly change here?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Manuel. Thank you so much for having me on. This is an industry that I've been involved with officially for 30 years. Before that, I saw the world in a different way when I was in the U.S. Navy, but so I saw it differently back then. But I've been officially in the travel industry for 30 years. So my company, Safe Harbors Business Travel, our focus is corporate travel, but we also have exposure into other areas within the industry. So Safe Harbors, 30 years old. Actually 35 years old, and I've been involved with it for 30 years. And it's an industry I love. It's an exciting place, and at the end of the day, people love talking travel. And anytime you go out, you're having a conversation someplace. Okay, where are the deals? Where are the exciting places to go to? And quite honestly, I enjoy talking that. And but in my opinion, no offense to anyone else, I think it's the greatest industry in the world.
Why would you not want to travel? I mean, if you have the resources,
yeah,
the time and the resources, it is really great to go ahead and travel. And maybe I'll just inject a little bit of something personal here. So whether you like him or not, when Anthony Bourdain was doing all of these shows, doing all the good side and all the other side that may not necessarily be ready for primetime TV.
Right.
It was great, and whenever I travel myself, I go ahead and make sure. And the same thing with Bizarre Foods for Andrew Zimmerman is that I really try whatever their local is. So yes, I'll go with you that the business of travel is one of the top things to do out there.
Yeah. What you're saying, Manuel, is Anthony Bourdain, for example. But in many areas, I was also chairman of American Society of Travel Advisors, which is made up of about 12,000 members internationally. And it was a great experience. I was involved with that board and still very much involved. But, we travel the world globally and still do in many cases. And in my opinion, travel is you get to understand different cultures. You get to see what they're about. You get to respect what they're about. People do different things, and that's okay. But you get to see how they operate. You get to see, the food they eat, just like Anthony Bourdain, and you get a better understanding and respect for other cultures that you cannot get by just staying put in one area.
Yes. And the reason I brought him up as well is because obviously with his passing just of his anniversary a few days ago, a week ago or so, and we're going back to what you mentioned, that the key word that I want to highlight there is respect, especially with everything that's going on right now.
Yeah,
Black Lives Matter, and sometimes it's just traveling with our own communities, if you may. So it doesn't have to be global all the time either. And just to go ahead and learn from other people, from their way of life, and open our minds and our blinders a little bit better with such things. So, Jay, before we go ahead and continue, I forgot, I have to go ahead and do a little bit of disclaimer here. So if you guys are joining in, again, this is for informational and educational purposes only. And obviously we are recording these sessions because we are going to go ahead and publish this that hopefully could help other people in whatever subject matter expert will be discussing. So All right, I got the legalese out of the way. Jay, let's get into the meat of things. So with COVID-19, what are the changes of business travel or travel for that matter? And I know it's a wide range, so feel free to take a stab of what you want to prioritize first.
Sure. Thanks, Manuel. So let's rewind a little bit about to, I guess, early March. And that's when everything started to hit the fan. And, as our focus being corporate travel, airfare people just stopped traveling for corporate travel. Same thing for the most part for leisure travel or for vacation type travel. But it really just started, at that point, people started canceling the reservations, and we became incredibly inundated by so many changes, and corporate travel just stopped. Quite honestly, we actually started seeing it back in November, December, and we do quite a bit of international business, and we saw our Trans-Pacific, specifically China business, start to go down, and we saw that going back to December, and so it slowly started to drop off between November, December, January, February, and then March. Everything hit here in the United States. So at that time, everything shut down, and we were literally doing negative sales for about 3 to 4 weeks, and so we had to make some significant adjustments. Over the past few weeks, we've made some. Actually, we're about 95% off where we were year to year, and so essentially, my business and any business that's related has been devastated. The industry has been absolutely devastated, and our first reaction at that time was, okay, how do we get our travelers back? The first word was okay, we're going to, any Americans or anybody who's traveling in Europe, you're not going to be able to get back. Well, that was re-clarified what that actually meant. So we were in the process of bringing people back and bringing people back into their areas, their homes, and so on. And so that was a mass reintroduction of getting people back into their local areas. So with that, no business, getting people back home, mass confusion, and then suppliers, airlines, hotels, car companies, nobody really knowing what to do aside from the fact of how do we bring everyone home. So that's what happened at that point. So mass confusion.
And I'm glad that you went with from a historical point of view. And when I say historical, like 6 months, 7 months ago.
Yeah, it feels like.
But I know we went light speed, if you may, with everything that changed, and with what you mentioned about the confusion. That's the reason why I am inviting subject matter experts like you guys, because there's a lot of information out there, and sometimes even from the highest position that you can identify without me naming names, that you get all of these different regulations, and then now they retract things and so on and so forth. So it's just, I do remember when that was discussed, and so on that note, you said even back in November, because I know at least from on my end that with COVID-19 that the discussions about this started about around January or late December, but at least the first few cases. Are you saying back in November, December that there were already some changes in that regard?
Absolutely. So Wuhan in China, they started to feel the effect. They started to see the virus taking place back in November, December. There's a lot of debate about how it was reported. There's a lot of debate on how it was communicated through the Chinese government, but they knew what was going on. And the companies that we work with, the U.S. companies, they knew what was going on as well, and they were bringing back their staff. and they were no longer sending their people there. We saw cancellations taking place in December. So
Mhm.
people stopped sending people in November. We saw cancellations taking place in December. So yeah, I'll stick my head out and my neck out on this one. Anybody that said we didn't see it coming, it's all coming. And we, being in the travel industry, we saw it taking place. So you can imagine all the other resources that are outside of our scope.
And I think this is a great introduction with our introduction earlier of learning the way of life of things. So with these organizations, companies who have business and staff members in this specific location of Wuhan, they already know what's going on locally that they may not necessarily be shared in the mainstream media, if you may. And
Right.
so they're already seeing the writing on the wall, and that's why they already they're like we said, they've started making the necessary changes that they have to do given the circumstances. And so and that's the other thing too. For the most part, when if for example, if I'm an organization, I'll work with EJ, is that I'm not booking something for tomorrow. I mean, unless if it's an emergency. But for the most part, we plan things ahead, like 3 months, 6 months ahead, right?
Certainly on the leisure side, vacation side, but on the corporate travel, usually it's within 7 days.
Within 7 days. Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
7 to 14 days maybe. But all right, let's take an average 10 days. 10 days, our corporate client, they know what they're doing. They're going to be traveling within that time frame.
During that time frame. Okay. Thank you for sharing. That's why I have an expert here. So and I think that's more appropriate then, because if you have that 10-day period, then again you exactly know what's going on right there and then.
It's immediate. Yeah.
It's rather immediate. And so if it's a 10-day period, then you mentioned regarding March when all of a sudden people started canceling, and I really don't know what happened, but for people who had these airfare and tickets and these things, did they get their money back? What happened?
Yeah, great question, and that's still being debated today as well. So what happened was CDC and the federal government said no more traveling. We don't recommend traveling. We don't recommend. They didn't shut it down because the planes were still flying. So we don't recommend you get on an airplane. We don't recommend. We recommend you need to isolate, or quarantine. And so that's what caused all the businesses in the states to close down the businesses and so on, each individually. And what happened was those who purchased tickets, here's a real clear piece here, is you have a non-refundable ticket and you have a refundable ticket. Refundable ticket is just that. Refundable ticket, you're paying top dollar for it. You're paying a higher price for it initially, and chances are you're going to get 100% of that back, maybe a penalty, depending on the class of service you got. So they might say, okay, for $50, we're going to give you the whole thing back, again, depending on the class of service you bought. Then there's a non-refundable ticket, which typically most travelers do buy, whether you're a corporate or even a vacation type traveler. So you have a non-refundable ticket, and again, different levels of non-refundable tickets. But most cases, that non-refundable ticket is applicable for future use. It's never intended to be fully refunded. So that was never intended. Now, there is action taking place right now where there are a number of people who are lobbying Congress to then tell the airlines that you need to fully refund even non-refundable tickets as a result of the pandemic. So in my opinion, I suppose that makes sense on paper, but I will tell you this, it would absolutely cripple the airlines if that were the case. They don't have the money to come out with that because they have very specific matrix and pricing models to know exactly what each ticket is worth and the value and if they had the refund. So it would absolutely cripple that part of the industry. Some might say, oh, well, some might say, well, that's appropriate. To be without some of those companies would be absolutely devastating to the industry and the economy itself. But that's a breakdown between, so for airline tickets. Then you have hotel. Hotels were very good. They were very good at doing cancellations. Some cases they did penalties. For the most part, they waived. Car companies, no problem. Cruises. You saw cruises actually were very, very good. and in doing their cancellations. Some cases getting money back. Some cases they were applying it to future use. So they were pretty flexible. In some cases, I know they were also providing additional credit on top of that. So they've been very good about it.
I mean, yeah, the industry is already crippled to begin with, and I just want to go back to the non-refundable thing. Is that you can reuse it for future? That can be done, correct?
Right, right.
Okay.
So a non-refundable ticket, typically in the past, you could apply it to future use for 1 year. For 1 year in the past. For the most part, most of the airlines, most of the ones that you and I all know, they have now extended that to 2 years.
Okay.
So if any of the tickets were purchased during that period, they couldn't use it during that time, they can now use it for 2 years. Now, here's one caveat, is if you are on an airline that airline is no longer servicing that destination and it's a non-refundable ticket, then you will get a full refund. Chances are they're still servicing them. They may have reduced it down from 5 flights a day down to 1. As far as they're concerned, they're still servicing that area.
Yes. Okay. Sounds good. And thank you for qualifying it that way. And then now it says extended to 2 years.
Yep.
And obviously I understand that, for example, if I'm going to go ahead and travel because of a specific event, it's a wedding or birthday or whatever, and then, yeah, it's 2 years from now, it kind of defeats the purpose if I have to travel. But again, because everybody's impacted, then
right,
it has to adjust in one shape or form. So, okay. I'm sorry, I didn't capture it clearly. You said the cruises and hotels, rental cars, they were able to cancel, but were they able to refund things?
For the most part, they were. Yeah, I've heard some very good stories. They were very flexible. The hotels were very flexible in most cases. There's some certain parameters maybe that they were they weren't as flexible, but for the most part, for everyday traveler, yeah, they were very, very generous actually.
Okay, that's good to know that. And I'm just trying to go ahead and think, if I'm the consumer, hey, how come my hotel gave me a refund? How come you, airline, you're not giving me a refund? So, if that makes sense.
I often call it airline logic. It doesn't always make sense. So,
okay. All right, gotcha. I mean, not to put anybody on.
I know.
It's just that I'm just thinking if and that's why I clarify that if they were able to get the refund, and since everybody's impacted, then why not you? And I am sure there's a lot more in terms of their business model, what their projections are and expenses that
right.
I don't know if we really need to go into those details right now, but okay, sounds good. All right, so that's roughly what happened before, and I'm glad we're moving it from a chronological order. Yeah. Where are we now? Because I know when we did our teaser 2 weeks ago, there may have been changes. So where are we now specifically on June 16th? I believe today's the 16th.
Yeah. So where are we now?
Yes.
Quite honestly, since March. So after March, about the second week of March, as I discussed, there was so much confusion. People were canceling tickets, refunds, and so on. Once that settled down, once we got beyond that, it took about maybe 3 weeks to get past that. It's been pretty much status quo, and the airlines have come out with their policies. You have one airline, actually Delta. Delta has a policy that all center seats are blocked out, so they're going to make sure that they're giving social distancing for that. Other airlines, they don't have the same policy. So you have each airline creating their own policy when it comes to what they believe is good social distancing and good practice. You have hotels, they're doing some pretty good things. They've taken away the buffet breakfast. So now they're bringing it to you. So they're all doing different things. They're going to keyless entry. So your cell phone. so you can open up your door on your hotel room. Car companies, they're doing the best they can to keep their cars clean. Cruise lines, they can't do anything until the end of July, I believe. That's when the CD said that no cruises can even start until after July 31st. I believe that's the date. And of course, tours. They're pretty much in the same boat as everybody else. So what I just shared with you, what all that means right now is there's an incredible state of confusion. Oh, I forgot about one layer. You have now each individual state and you have each individual country who has their own policies and rules. So if you were to go to London right now, you've got to stay there at least 14 days because you have a 14-day quarantine. If you go to some states, and I think it was either Vermont or Maine, you have a 14-day quarantine. And so there are some different states around the area that you literally have to quarantine yourself to be there. How they police that, I don't know. But the bottom line is they're asking for quarantine for that when you go into different states. So with all that said, Manuel, it's confusion. It's mass confusion. And we're trying to do everything we possibly can to keep our clients up to speed on so many different things. So as I mentioned, you have Delta, who actually, I actually give a lot of praise for what they're doing, blocking out all center seats. Everybody has to wear a mask now. You go on a plane, everybody's wearing a mask. And they're going to give you a cleaner. So you can wipe down your table, whatever, your tray, you can do that, your armrests. But then not every airline is blocking out that center seat. So you have to look at it. Which airline do I think is better for me? And Delta looks at it as it's a competitive advantage in doing so. The problem here is that there is no central governance. There are no central guidelines. And quite honestly, it's driving the industry crazy, and it should be driving everybody crazy right now. In that, in years past, after 9/11, you had TSA. TSA was formed. TSA said, okay, here are our guidelines. And our guidelines, you have to have a clear bag for all your toiletry items. As you go through, you're going to get checked out as this happens. Today, there are no such guidelines. And that is a result of the CDC has not come out with the guidelines. The federal government has not pushed CDC, or the CDC has not provided them to the federal government. Perhaps, who knows what's going on there. But until we have such guidelines, confidence in travel will be shaky. And that's what we have to have. We have to have confidence in travel for people to get back on a plane, to get into the hotels, and we have to have those guidelines. So it's absolutely, absolutely critical for travel right now.
With everything that you said, maybe I'll go ahead and begin. It is indeed a challenge when there's no rather universal thing, if you may. And as I've shared with you before the recording, when I had the immigration lawyer come in as a subject matter expert, pretty much the bottom line is that even from the immigration government, and I understand there's a lot of things to go ahead and consider, that there's no official statement, if you may, of what's going to happen with expiring visa, or if I'm here as a student and now the school is closed and stuff like that.
Right.
So, and then at the same time with travel, that I understand there's so many things to go ahead and consider. And at the same time, I understand what big government versus, what you private industries determine what's right for you. And yes, if Delta will identify this as competitive advantage, that people will come to us because we're identifying the strict rule of the middle seat. I mean, even before COVID-19 anyway, I don't know who wants to sit in the middle seat anyway. So, but yes, but I think it would serve best that there would be some type of a top-down approach of at least the minimum guidelines, because if one is profiting more that I fill up my plane,
yeah,
versus 2/3 of the plane,
right,
and then what the costs would be. So am I going to go with a cheaper one? I assume Delta will have to raise a little bit higher. I don't know. And then yeah, and then so am I just going to go ahead and see if I'll contract or be a carrier, or wow, that's
It,
crazy.
it's crazy. So let me, instead of being all doom and gloom, I'm not going to
Yeah,
be all
yeah,
doom
yeah.
and gloom here. So let me give
Sorry,
the.
sorry. I didn't mean to be that one. I apologize. Go ahead.
So I don't want to give you. Let's go with the good, bad, and the ugly. The bad and the ugly, I think I just gave you.
Okay.
The good is, in my opinion, it is the safest time to travel
Because.
because just like any other time, when there's an incident that took place, everybody's thinking, okay, how are we going to make this thing the most safe as possible? How are we going to make sure we follow all the procedures and process? And that's exactly what's happened here. Even though they're not doing it all consistently,
Mhm.
um, they are now taking additional steps to address items. So, one, I believe it's the most safest time to travel because it is now at a peak. They want to get travelers back. Hotels they want to put heads in beds. Airlines, they want to put people in their seats. Cruises, that they're not cruising yet, but they got to put people into those ships real soon. So they're making sure those ships are clean as possible and pristine clean. So they're doing everything possible. Now you're going to ask me, okay, well, our price is going to come down. Can they want to get people traveling again? So does that mean supply and demand?
Yeah.
Does that say that airlines are going or cruises or wherever are going to offer really special deals to get people out there? Maybe, maybe. Now, I say that maybe is that cruises actually are very aggressive right now getting people on there. So they're doing a really, really good job of doing forward. So you remember that leisure and that corporate traveler is usually buying things within 7 to 10, 14 days.
Mhm.
Leisure is booking a couple of years out. So they're putting some really strong incentives in place. The airlines, they had to reduce their capacity. They dropped their airline capacity literally from 100% down to, in some cases, down to 10%, maybe up to 20%, depending on the market. So what that means is they parked a lot of planes. They parked a lot of planes at airports, boneyards, wherever you want to call it. They parked a lot of planes, and they only had a few still traveling. And so what that means is they had all these other planes sitting there, and they don't have them back into the fleet yet. But they're starting to add these planes to the fleet, and it's again a supply and demand. So they only have a few amount of seats available right now.
Yeah.
So they're kind of looking at, well, we don't really need to discount it too much.
Yeah.
We don't have to discount it too much because we already have a few amount of seats. However, in July, we're starting to see schedules coming back in for a lot of the carriers, not only just domestically and internationally. So I think depending on location, depending on destination, we will see some really competitive airfare, um, hotel, because the hotels shut down a lot. Spoke with people at Marriott yesterday, and they dropped. I think they closed down about 800 of their hotels in U.S., and they're slowly bringing them back on. Every one of these suppliers are saying, okay, well, it's going to take us about 2 to 3 weeks to get up to a certain capacity. Getting pilots back into the planes, flight attendants, hotel personnel, and so on. So 2 to 3 weeks. But to answer your question real quick, or answer my question real quick, is I would expect you're going to see probably some pretty competitive fares and rates out there as more capacity comes online.
And no doubt that the market will determine that, but of course we will see what the realities of COVID-19 is, because we're and what are we willing to, I don't know if this is the right term, gamble of such of being out there and doing such things. So
Yeah.
no doubt, if the good deals are out there, and I've shared about my love for travel myself, I may need to dig in and see. Now, I apologize for the participants here, Ella, Don, Miko, Lisa. If you have any questions for our subject matter expert, feel free to raise your hand or jump in. So I'll pause a little bit here if you have any specific questions before I continue grilling Jay here.
Manuel, if I could share also, as I mentioned, the amount of confusion that's out there, we have done everything possible to make sure our clients are up to speed about what's going on. So we actually on our website, safeharbors.com, we have on the top piece, it says updates on the coronavirus resources. And if you were to click that, it gives you a breakdown of where all the states are and what you need to do. Do they have a quarantine there in each state? But also countries. You know, what countries do they have particular quarantines? And also, I've been doing a video series where I've been interviewing, very similar to this. I've been interviewing, as I mentioned, Marriott. Interviewed somebody from Delta, and I'm speaking with somebody from National Car Rental tomorrow. And so we have all those videos posted there for additional information.
Yes. So and again, the reason why we're doing this is because all of our subject matter experts are doing their own respective things as well. So feel free to go ahead and follow Jay and his channel as well with all of these events, just to be as up to date as possible with everything that's going on. And if there's something I want to clarify regarding quarantine, yeah, I mean, is the government policing that? If, for example, like I said, if I travel to London, are all of us in that plane going to stay in one area, or we go on to our respective homes, and then we quarantine in that home?
Yeah, I think in London, how the states are doing it, I'm not sure. I don't know how you police that. But in London, I believe when you do fill out your entry in, you have to give them an address of where you're staying for 14 days. So if they see something, if they see that if you're doing a round trip air ticket and it's only showing 5 days, they're going to say no. First of all, you can't commit because we have a 14 day. So you have to do a 14-day airline ticket, and then you have to tell them that I'm staying at so-and-so hotel for those 14 days before you even conduct business, or if you're there for business or for vacation.
So who's covering all those expenses? If, for example, if it's a business trip, speaking of business travel, if it's an absolute thing, and that's what I did, and it's only for 5 days, who's going to pay for the extra days that I have to stay?
Yeah. Well, for the most part, that's where companies are making decisions not to go.
So it's more of out of pocket, not the government taking care of it.
Yeah, exactly. So they're making decisions not to go, or they're turning into an extended vacation. So it's all personal out of pocket, or company, or personal pocket.
Okay. And then, like what you said, how will the government or whoever identify that I'm just staying in my hotel or I'm not going around?
Yeah, no. I think the best they can do is they can determine, all they want to see is that you're at this hotel for 14 days. You're in one spot for 14 days.
Okay.
Yeah. And again, this information is changing every single day. So what I just told you could be completely different.
No doubt. And that's a disclaimer that we're sharing with everyone. That we recorded this on June 16th. And so go to Mr. J's website, safeharbors.com, right?
Safeharbors.com. Yeah, thank you.
For consistent updates, if you may. All right, but that's the bottom line, is that be as informed as possible and get it from the source as much as you can when you have specific questions. And Jay is an excellent source in that regard. All right, cool. So you mentioned something about masks, and they give you a wipe or thing to clean the armrests and tables and stuff like that. Is that at least universal right now, or that's also by airline by airline?
I am seeing that. I think every airline is requiring that now.
Oh, requirement. Okay.
Yeah, and if you don't, in fact, I saw something on news this morning that United is coming out with even a heavier that if you don't have them with you, they will give it to you. They will give you a mask, and if you still decline in wearing one, then you're not able to board. So that's about the heaviest I've seen. I don't know why you would decline it. I mean, it's the world we're in right now.
Yeah, if you will see reports that people are complaining about wearing one, I'm not going to speak for them, but that's what I'm just hearing and listening, and I
Right.
understand it too. But at the same time, it's for everyone's safety.
Yeah.
But here's my question. Okay, let's say I'm compliant when I board, and once I'm on the plane, I take it out and say, yeah, whatever to you guys.
Right, right.
How that's not going to be pretty.
No, it's not going to be pretty. I'm sure the flight attendants will go into action and politely request you to put it back on. Um, beyond that, I haven't heard any stories about any kind of issues. There
Okay,
haven't been any ugly stories out there in the travel publications. I'm traveling. Actually, I'm flying in about 2 weeks, so I'll report back to you what I hear and see.
okay, gotcha. And so on that note, this is the reason. This is one of the major reasons why we're doing these sessions, to provide as a more accurate information for everyone's benefit, not only just for selfish benefits. That sure, I mean, even for myself, I don't like wearing masks, but when I'm in public or whatever, that's what I need to do to protect the community around me. So hopefully we will go ahead and respect and honor that in order to protect each other, because what you're doing is impacting others and what other people are impacting us. So let's all be respectful of what the science says,
Hmm.
not because Jay says so. That's what I
Right, right.
honor the expertise of Jay, but
Yeah.
that's what the science says. In order to reduce the transmission of such, let's go ahead and do that. So, all right, wonderful. Okay, so what else about the future that you can project? I know you've already mentioned about deals that are being made 2 years at a time and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Anything else specific regarding that?
It's a really good question, Manuel. And this is one of my questions whenever I speak with my suppliers I talk to. And, first of all, people are traveling today. So they are traveling. It's not all shut down, but they are traveling. And we speak with our clients and our travels all the time to get a debrief and to hear what kind of experiences they've gone through. And they've all been actually, they've said they've been pleasant experiences. They've been good experiences. What's going to happen? So what's going to happen, let's say 6 months, a year from now? Of course, nobody knows, and everybody wants to predict. Everybody has their own predictions about what things are going to look like. Chances are people are going to be, when they get to the gate, they'll probably get their temperature checked. Not only today, but in the future. They're going to get their temperature checked when they're boarding an airplane. I don't think there's a whole lot wrong with that. I mean, it could be debatable. I mean, if somebody's hot for some other reason, they're going to be denied boarding. So hopefully it's not going to be too oppressive. But, there are going to be some different things such as that. I would expect that masks, a key thing is everything, it's going to be a game changer when there's a vaccine. When there's a vaccine for this, it'll be a game changer and everything will change. But does that say that people will need to stop wearing masks on an airplane, in a hotel, on a cruise ship, whatever? Probably not. I think, everything will evolve, just like it did when after 9/11 with the TSA. Everything evolved and people started getting comfortable with certain methods of traveling. You're going through the detector at TSA security, your luggage going through, you got used to it. And I think this is just going to be another case of what are we going to get used to? Um, you know, Everything from temperature checks and how you pack.
To change and modify behaviors, if you may,
Yeah,
just like what you said before 9/11, and then after that, how we have changed and how we have adjusted and adapted. And that gave me a thought regarding the temperature check. I think it would be better that before I go through TSA, I'm already checked. Because I'm not, if I'm doing it by the gate, I go through all of that
right.
ordeal,
Yeah, and,
I mean,
and
might as well.
you think about that, Manuel, is you have some people. I've seen them when they go through. Let's put it this way: somebody who doesn't really travel a whole lot, and
Uh-huh.
they go to that TSA checkpoint, they have anxiety.
Yes.
Their hands are sweating, and they're anxious about the whole thing. And the next thing you know, probably their temperature may be going up too, and they're going to get denied boarding. So there going to have to be some real. There's going to have to be some procedures in place to make sure those people are taken care of.
Yeah, if I'm rushing to the gate,
Yeah,
I
you'll
lost
be
track of time. I'm enjoying my coffee in this place.
exactly. I know. And who knows? Does it include connection? You're going from one
Oh yeah, yeah,
side of the airport to the other. You're doing your O.J. Simpson, running across, and you're all hot and sweaty. I don't know.
yeah,
So there are so many questions out there, but certainly there are going to be certain levels of temperature check. And but you're right. If you get your temperature check before you went, that would be a very smart thing to do.
okay. So, all right. Wow, it's
I know
interesting.
I just threw a lot out there, but we're in a new world now.
But you know what? I mean, just go, for example, going back to the vaccine. No doubt we want the vaccination, but with the two medical doctors that I have talked with regarding these virtual town hall sessions, the bottom line of what they've shared is that one, the efficacy of vaccines, it's not 100%. So don't think that that's always going to save our life. And then if we're going to rush through things and kind of skip of the typical standards, again, we wouldn't know as well of the efficacy of it. And at the same time, we have no idea what the side effects would be. So
Right.
I'm not saying these things to report the doom and gloom. It's just a matter of just taking everything into stride and considering all of the other factors before as we continue to make the smart decisions that we have to make. So and with the travel, it's the same thing. Where that again, just even that idea that one airline can fill up to capacity and the other one is just flying 2/3. There's, I don't know. I'm yeah. Anyway, we have a question here. If the traveling person will not wear a mask once in flight, maybe they will be handed a parachute. There's a comment here on that.
I
Thank
was thinking
you.
that, but I didn't say it.
Yeah. And whoever chatted me that, I assume you chatted me privately, so I'm not going to call you out. But if we can have some level of levity with
Yeah,
a serious discussion here,
yeah,
thank you. That's funny. But but maybe they go ahead and say, no, who cares about a parachute?
right. That's true. Exactly right. Exactly.
Uh, anyway, all right. Okay, so what else can you go ahead and share in the industry of travel for both business and leisure? And I know you dabbled a little bit more of from rental car to cruise hotels, but anything else that you could go ahead and share? What should we pay if we are going to choose to travel? What do we need to pay attention to? What do we need to be careful of? And anything else?
Yeah, sure. So, as I mentioned, I'm going to be traveling in 2 weeks. My I am traveling with my wife and daughter out to Oregon next week or 2 weeks, and I haven't been on a plane since February, which is crazy. I usually travel every other week, and it's my mind is I gotta get out of here. So they said, "Come on, Jay, we're just gonna take a little fun trip out to Portland, Oregon," and so in my case, I'm a seasoned traveler, and so I have my expectations, but I don't want to overdo those expectations, thinking I know it. So I'm going to be definitely studying up on each of the airports that I'm going to. Certainly Portland, Oregon. Are there certain things that they're doing? I know I'm connecting, so I'm kind of curious what those airports are looking like. So I'm doing a little bit of homework on it. And I'm going to keep track. I'm going to report back about what the experience was on the airline and what the airport experiences were, what the hotel experience in the car. But I think, if anything, just like anything else, you're traveling. And if you're traveling for leisure or vacation, you're making an investment. You made an investment in that travel. And you spend a couple $100, whether it be on that airline, cruise, hotel, treat it as an investment and go there with knowledge. just don't hop on a plane, which I'm I'm often accused myself as a business traveler. I don't look at my itinerary until I get to the airport, and I'm guilty of that. But as a vacation traveler, do a little bit of homework on that, and just kind of, if you want, go to our website and you can look at information on those different areas that you're going to, but do your homework so you can feel comfortable with things. But as a corporate traveler, corporations need to be in real close communication with people such as us, and that's what we're doing. We're staying in very close communication with them. We're giving seminars and webinars to them as well. So, hey, expect this, expect that, and make sure you have everything in your travel policies updated. So we're spending a lot of time with our corporate clients on this as well, and preparing them.
Okay. And then I receive a private chat here, and I want to echo everything that you said, that it's highly suggested that every consumer will do their respective homework of the airline, the airport, the specific destinations they're going to get into, to be as comfortable and as secure as possible. Because just going back to what you mentioned, there's certain states wherein you're required to do a quarantine. So, but again, how can we really monitor that? And that's one of my main questions when I went through the contact tracing Coursera course by Hopkins, is that as we continue with contact tracing, who's actually going to determine that it's my 14 days and I'm good or whatever? So, or it's just really a highly suggestion, Jay, this is what you need to do, and don't go out or whatever. And then we just have that faith in that person to follow such guidelines. I don't know, but yeah, hopefully that helps clarify. That's what you said, right? To do your necessary homework.
Yeah. I'm not saying you need to spend the hours in researching that destination or the travel, but we're in a different world now, and we love to travel. We all love to travel, and don't kill yourself over it and and don't sweat the small stuff.
Yeah.
Just don't sweat the small stuff, but be educated about it.
Would it be a good thing to, for example, if I'm staying in this hotel, I'll give them a call and say, hey, are there any specific expectations?
I think that'd be wise. You can certainly go to their website.
Go to their website.
Yeah, go to their website and you can see what their COVID-19, how they've addressed it, and they'll give a whole list of things. And if you wanted to take it a step further, have a conversation with the front desk. I think you're probably better off just going to their website.
Yeah, and then because like what you said earlier, if I want a contactless door, meaning I just scan an ID or whatever, and it opens it up for me.
Yeah. So you can download your key on your phone, and just right there by the door handle, it opens up your door. Okay. So you don't have to touch anything.
Yeah. So if that's something that you want as a consumer, then you can go ahead and identify if they have made those necessary updates.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly right.
And then the thing, anyway, before COVID-19, ideally you do your necessary homework anyway.
Yeah.
Where you're going. So I mean,
it's just a different type of homework.
Yes, it's a different type of homework. And yeah. Cool, wonderful. Let's see. Okay, cool. Any other questions from the participants or any comments?
How about Lisa? Any questions from Lisa?
Actually, with Lisa in relation to insurance.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was on a call. I don't do travel insurance, if that's what you're talking about.
That's fine, but is there anything you want to ask?
No, but I recommend you get travel insurance, although I don't think it will cover any type of COVID issues, because no insurance really is going to cover anything like that.
And I am super happy that you are here because that was my next question. Because I know there's a cancellation insurance, like you pay $9.99 if something happens to the plane, or whatever the trip is. So there's no such thing right now that will insure you.
I'm sure they'll be coming out with something, and I'm sure it'll be pricey. But as far as I'm aware, there's nothing to cover COVID or viruses or anything like that at this time.
And I can imagine the challenge there, because if I get the travel insurance with that, how can they determine that I got it from the plane, or I got it from the airport, or I got it from the restaurant before I came to the airport, or as I talk to my neighbor?
Well, I think travel insurance does cover you if you get ill, but if they don't have a flight because of COVID, I'm thinking, really, I don't know. You'd have to check with an agent that sells travel insurance, but I would be very cautious.
Yes. So.
Yeah, Manuel. So yeah, Lisa's spot on that the travel insurance that exists today does not cover COVID issues, COVID-related issues. There's a wide range of travel insurances that are available today that you already did touch. And that's actually a very good question, is should you have travel insurance moving forward? For big ticket items like cruise lines, taking a big tour, where there might be an opportunity, it might be a thing where you have a pre-existing condition, or you get injured, or you get sick, you need to get home, something happens. Yeah, highly recommend it. Highly recommend that. If you're afraid that you need to cover COVID, Lisa's correct. It's not going to cover that today. And it's probably the case, and in time it will come out, but that's not available yet.
Okay. All right. So there's a question here. If you're comfortable to share this a little bit more, Jay, what are the specific precautions that I know you mentioned about the homework and just being more familiar where you're going, but is there anything specific on your trip that you consider the most important for your family to go ahead and travel, and that you feel comfortable and safe? Anything specific that you had to identify?
Yeah, I want to know what the airline is doing if I'm traveling by air. I want to know what the airline's doing to address cleanliness. I want to know what the hotel is doing to address that as well. I mean, hotel, you think about all the different. I had a conversation, as I mentioned yesterday, with Marriott, and there was a rumor out there, just like there's so many rumors going on everywhere, that they took away remote controls for TVs. And I said, please don't say that. I don't know what I would do if I was in a hotel room without a remote control. And she said, no, that was just a bad rumor that went out there. But what they're doing is they have disinfectant naps, wet naps all over the place, so you can wipe down those kind of things. And but to answer the question specifically, I would make sure that I want to know what the hotel policies are. I want to know what the airline policies are. Cruise lines, I want to understand what the cruise lines are doing as well. Again, some cruise lines are doing it differently. Some people may ask about the sharing, sharing economy, which could be anywhere from Uber, Lyft to Airbnb.
Yeah.
I want to understand exactly what their policies are too, because they don't own those products, and they're highly reliant on those individual people of making sure that those areas are clean. It's not like they're a corporate-owned or business-owned product where they can say what you have to do. So I want to make sure that they are following some standards and that they are clean as well.
All right. Hopefully that answered your question. I'm sorry if I paraphrased it. Hopefully the way I paraphrased your question was good. And if you don't mind diving in a little bit more, you mentioned about tours. You mentioned about all the other ways of traveling, such as Airbnb and Uber and Lyft. Is there anything specific that you know right now that has changed tremendously? I mean, again, we understand about the cleanliness and sanitation, but is there anything there that's new that you could share with any of those aspects?
Yeah. So, the tour companies, they shut down as well. For the most part, they shut down. They're still trying to figure things out. Depending on what the variety of that tour is, so whether it's in the U.S., we are seeing and it's actually making something for everybody on this video. There's a much more of an increase for obvious reasons for U.S. touring within North America. Just the fact that people don't want to maybe travel internationally at this point for the next 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. Certainly for the summer. There's a lot of U.S. type travel going on. We're seeing an uptick in RVs. People are renting out RVs and driving around the country. A, it keeps everybody contained in one area. On board an RV, their family. And B, they don't want to get on an airplane. And so that's kind of an interesting alternative to travel, which many people may have not done in the past. And so we're seeing different types of travel taking place there.
And that's what it is from an evolutionary perspective, that we are continuously adjusting and adapting to whatever is thrown to us, just like what you mentioned, that we base it on, as we continue to adjust and adapt, we base it on what the realities are and identify what we would go ahead and consider safe, and then different business models will go ahead and come about to go ahead and meet certain needs. So it's not always all bad, but let's go ahead and learn a little bit more how we can be creative to work with things. So, and there's a statement here: the RV experience also puts your group or family outside the lot, which is supposed to be best. So yeah, absolutely. So being more outdoors, if you may, and I know tourism tourism within the country is important, and so something that just popped up in my head right now, going back to London. If you go over there, there's a 14-day quarantine, and pardon my ignorance here, are we accepting people from outside of the U.S. to visit us here?
We are.
Oh, we are. Okay, and do we have a quarantine?
I don't believe so. It depends on the state they're going to. They may have different regulations.
So that's state dependent as well.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. I'm stepping out in an area I'm not as clear about. In fact, I can certainly get back to you on that. What on the inbound travel from outside, but there are definitely some features there that, but people are coming in from outside the U.S. Yes.
Okay, so it's possible that from JFK policies would be different if I arrive in LAX.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds interesting. All right.
Thus, getting back to the centralized guidelines.
Yes.
Centralized guidelines. So until there's centralized guidelines, you can feel much more comfortable about what the guidelines are, and there's some kind of consistency.
Wow. Yeah, because if just going back to that, if it's London, I assume the whole England has that 14-day, whatever their international airports are. But since we have multiple international airports here, and so if I go ahead and say, no, I can only stay 5 days, not 14.
Yeah. Now, for the most part,
instead.
For the most part, most of the international airports, mentioned JFK and LA and Chicago, they're all relatively consistent with inbound travel. So I don't think there's any real concern there.
Okay.
Miami now, of course, then what's going to happen is they go from JFK and they fly into another state. That's where they might have an issue.
Okay.
So, but most of the central areas where they're flying into are for the most part consistent.
Gotcha. All right. Well, it's the top of the hour here. Any other last questions from Ella, Don, Miko, or Lisa? Or anything else you guys want to share? Okay. Jay, super thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Manuel. Thanks for the opportunity, and love sharing what the latest and greatest is, even if it is June 16th. It could change tomorrow.
Yes, so safe travels and have fun in Portland, Oregon. And with these virtual town hall sessions, we want to highlight a specific nonprofit organization that that you want to go ahead and share to the public. Is there anything that you want to go ahead and share that we could go ahead and support?
Yeah, always the Cancer Society. Absolutely, it's always the Cancer Society, American Cancer Society. That's always a great place to be.
All right, sounds good. So on that note,
Volunteering. Yeah.
yeah, so we're doing this because aside from the informational and educational stuff that we could go ahead and learn from this, but uh, these organizations, these nonprofit organizations are doing a lot of help. So thank you for that, Jay. And all right, so I'll see you guys next time for our next virtual town hall session. And if you missed this, feel free to go ahead and share. After watching, feel free to go ahead and share. And if you have other questions, please contact Jay. Jay, your phone number, best phone number to reach out to your organization?
Sure. Best phone number 443-923-1408.
All right. And we'll make sure it's on the body of the text of our YouTube channel anyway regarding your contact information, okay?
Great. Fantastic.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you for watching, and I hope you found this video informational and educational. Please share our videos and subscribe to our channel. If not, my dad will not give me dessert.